Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's session of our virtual education series presented by the San Diego chapter of Women in Aviation International. My name is Lily Roberts. I'm the membership chair for our chapter, and today we are very excited to have this wonderful speaker with us. Kat Beckham is an A&P. She actually teaches at SAU Tech in Camden, Arkansas. And something that is really interesting, Kat and I first met back in June of 2017. Actually, I think on June 11th, which would be tomorrow, when we were both uh, attending a Girls in Aviation Day at the school where she teaches. And, um, the goal of Women in Aviation is to connect, engage, and inspire. And what's really cool about the aviation community, and particularly women in aviation, is it's such a small world and a tight knit community. And when I was putting together the list of presenters for this series, um, it was just really neat that I could reach out to somebody in another state who I met years ago, tell her what we're doing, and she said, "Absolutely, sign me up. I want to help you guys out with this." So it's a great group to be a part of. Kat lives in Camden and teaches there, and she has a really interesting background and some cool experience. So I'm going to let her tell you more about herself and what being an A&P is all about. So go ahead, Kat. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. So my name is Catherine Beckham. Everybody calls me Kat. I got started in aviation in a kind of strange way. Um, I joined at the age of 36, and it was kind of a lark, if you say that. So I had gotten divorced and kind of was like, looking around for something to do, a little bit of direction. And my dad's a Vietnam veteran, and he was like, join the army and that'll give you some direction. And I was like, I'm 36, that time has passed. And he was like, no, just go try. So just to kind of placate him, I went. Well, they took me, y'all. So I thought every step along the way, they were gonna be like, she's got to go. I mean, then I wound up in basic training and I was like, what just happened? But it was kind of a lucky incident when I went to MEPS. I was going to be a nurse because that's a good girl's job, especially down here in Arkansas. All the girls want to be an RN. And so I thought, well, it's stable. You can make good money. You can get a job anywhere. Never did I ever consider this as aviation maintenance as a profession. When I went to MEPS, they weren't accepting females for nurses at that time. They needed combat medics, and that was before women could enter combat. So they were only taking guys, and like on the spot, we had to pick out a different job. And so the guy said, well, you're really high in your mechanical skill. What about working on helicopters? And I was thought, ding, because that's what my dad did in Vietnam. And I thought, well, he's going to love this, so we'll keep it in the family. And I said, sign me up. So, and then I came home and I told him what I was going to be. And he was like, what? Crazy, it's dangerous. And I was like, no, I got it, Pop. So yeah, I wound up in the army as a Kiowa. We're a scout helicopter. So I was stationed at Fort Drum, New York. I only did one enlistment because they run a lot in the army. And so I was really good at mechanicking. I wasn't great at running. So when my enlistment was up, I decided to get out. But here's some pictures of me back in the day having my fun. And I really enjoyed my time in the Army. As far as women is concerned, there was another female that was in my troop, and we were treated fairly good. So I can't say a lot of people that join the military have difficult times kind of fitting in as women, especially in that mechanics role. But I did very well. So, and I'm a good mechanic. And I think that's one of the things that I say to all my female students when they come through is you can absolutely do it. You just have to be really good at it if you don't want the guys to give you a hard time. So that was kind of my attitude as I went through was I'm going to be the best and I'm not going to give them anything to like complain about when it comes to Beckham. Beckham's going to show up and do what she's supposed to do. So I enjoyed my time in the Army. It gave me a lot more, I think, than I gave the Army. I got discipline, I got confidence, I got a skill set that I was fascinated with. So I absolutely loved the first time I touched that helicopter, it was over, just done. I'm like, this is what I have to do for the rest of my life. So once I decided I didn't want to get into the Army or stay in the Army, I was looking around for schools to go to get my civilian license. And there's two ways that you can do that. And it is through experience, or you can go to a Part 147 school that's authorized by the FAA, and complete that. And then you're allowed to test for your A&P. Well, I had the hands-on experience, but it was only in rotorcraft. So in the Army, everything is very segregated. If you work on sheet metal, that's all you ever do. If you work on avionics, that's all you ever see. So as a crew chief, we were inspections, pre-flights, post-flights, remove, replace type maintenance. And I thought, well, I need to go to the school because I don't know anything about fixed wing. And then there's a lot of subsystems that I never saw when I was in the Army. So I was looking around and didn't even realize that we had an A&P school in my hometown. And so I looked into it. I came back home to Camden. I went through the program. And then so I went through the program, and one of the instructors that was there, he had been there for about 15 years and he was getting ready to retire. And I chose to stay and teach. So these are a few pictures of some of my students that we've had through the years. I love teaching. I love being able to share my passion for aviation with young people, especially women. The amount of women that we have coming through the program has increased. I was kind of a unicorn when I showed up, and they were like, wow, we've never had a girl come through here. And since I've been teaching, I specifically, every time I talk at any kind of event, I single out those girls and I say, listen, you can do this. If you like that type of thing, if you like taking things apart, putting things back together, figuring out how they work, you can do this and you can be very, very successful in it. So I've been very fortunate that I've had females in every single class I've had over the last 10 years. And they've all graduated and they're all out there kind of working. So they have a higher success rate than my guys do, because I think we're a little bit more organized, a little bit more determined. And I think that we think we have something to prove, so typically my female students are my shining stars. Um, I did want to share some information with you guys. There's a council called the Aviation Technician Education Council, and they put out a pipeline report every year based off of a bunch of different information. And so I pulled this from the 2023 pipeline report. So the next few things are going to be kind of some graphs with some information. So this is sad. Women make up only 2.7% of the population of A&P mechanics. This is a number that is trending, but only by tenths of a percent every year. So a decade ago, women made up 2.2%. So we've only grown 0.5% in 10 years. And that's sad, so I would love to see that number go way up, skyrocket. Our military guys that get out, they're in the double digits. So male veterans that get out, that's increasing by double digits every year, where they're transitioning into the civilian world as a mechanic. But we're not catching our women. So that's something that we need to work on. Here is the amount of certificated mechanics that they have on record. So this is published by the FAA, and ATEC pulled that information and just put it into a graph. It goes all the way back to 2001. And you can see that the male is the darker blue and the top is the lighter blue is females. So even though the general overall up until 2016. And this is kind of a glitch because they made people apply for new plastic cards or something. So it kind of threw off the demographic. But you can see that even though the total male population tends to grow kind of significantly year to year, the females are just hanging in there by a thread. So we're the very tip top of that. Here's the age distribution. This is very interesting because everybody knows about the pilot shortage, right? We hear about that all the time. There is a huge mechanic shortage. And here's the biggest issue that we're having is this area right here, 50 to 54, 55 to 59, 60 to 64. So these are the current ages of the mechanics. And you can see that the majority in these two columns over the next 10 years are going to be transitioning out. We don't have the mechanics to replace them. 2027, I think, is going to be the toughest year. And I think we're going to be down about 46,000 mechanics at that point. Down here, it says over the next 10 years, 1 out of every 3 certificated mechanics, more than 90,000 in total, will reach retirement age. The average FAA mechanic is 53, which is 11 years older than the usual US worker. Females compose a much younger demographic. The average female mechanic is 46. So we have a little bit younger audience for the females. That to me tells me that we're gaining a little bit of traction with the younger generation. So the older people, it was mostly male, but now we're picking up where we're getting females to come in at a younger age and stay in the career field. And then here is the mechanic shortage projection. This projection does not consider non-commercial personal needs, meaning it leaves no bandwidth available to meet increased workforce demand for rotorcraft, business aviation, general aviation, or emerging technologies. So this is literally just the mechanic shortage projection for commercial aircraft. So you can see that in 2027, the yellow bar, we're going to need in the upper 40,000s worth of mechanics, but we're only going to have 10,000, like 30, almost 40,000. So it's about a $10,000 person shortage. In 2032, it starts getting a little better. By 2037, we're projected to actually start meeting the demands of the retiring mechanics. So the next 10 years, 15 years is going to be a difficult one for the aviation community unless we start kind of changing the way we're doing things. So part of the FAA's reform of Part 147, where they changed the standards, is helping a lot. It's allowing Part 147 schools to get a little bit more creative, to do some hybrid training where you can do computer and hands-on in the classroom. We've actually shortened our program so that we can get students graduated faster and get them out into the workforce quicker. So hopefully everybody putting their heads together and getting creative will kind of meet those demands. So. The little band is at the top where I can't show the thing again. I don't know how to get rid of it. Sorry. You'll have to edit that out too. I apologize. In 2022, aircraft maintenance technician schools graduated over around 9,300 A&P students. The average graduation rate was 70%, which is a much improved proportion over the past 4 years. The average age of an A&P is 25. Consistent with the previous 17 years, 17% of graduates are veterans and 40% are a racial or ethnic minority. Foreign nationals make up about 4% of the 2022 population. And this is good news. The female population is up 11% of the AMTS student body in 2022. So a substantial spread over current workforce demographics. More good news, the female cohort grew by 40% over the previous year. So that's a really big jump in the last year. So that one makes me really happy. Then I've got this was supposed to be on there. I guess I had it separate. And this is what they say is the most significant barrier to growth for aviation mechanics currently, is program awareness. We have programs out there, nobody knows about them. People know about the big guys like Spartan and AIM and Embry-Riddle, those sorts of places. But every state has a community college that has an aviation program. These are very affordable, way more affordable than some of the bigger places. And a lot of times the class sizes are smaller. So we really, the downside for us is that community colleges don't have a huge amount of money for recruiting, advertising, marketing, which is the second obstacle, insufficient marketing. The other one that we run into is adequate faculty. Because a lot of those places can't pay as well as if I left and went out to the workforce, and got an actual A&P job, I would probably double my salary instantly. So it's hard to find people that have the energy and the will to do it for that amount of money. So that's another thing. Lack of equipment, funding, the high program cost, FAA regulations, and accreditation requirements. So the FAA regulations actually used to be a much higher obstacle. It would have probably been up there before program awareness as an obstacle that we encountered, because the regulations were so limiting and strict as to how we could do our programs. But now, since they've kind of revised that, it's a lot easier to get the students through the program and be more flexible to kind of the way they learn now and what they need. So. And that's really it. That's all I have. Sorry, I messed up.
No, that's great. This is all new information to me, and it's really interesting and eye-opening. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank
Um,
you.
I have a couple questions that came to mind while you were speaking.
Okay.
So this looks like a wonderful field and opportunity to go into, considering the shortage that we're going to be facing in the very near future,
Yeah.
with all the old guys retiring. And there's going to be a lot of spots to fill. So I was wondering, you said there were two different ways that you could go about getting uh, a certificate
Mhm.
in aviation mechanics. You said you can go to a school or you can do it through experience. How long do you know on average does it take to go the school route, and what are the prerequisites? Do you need a high school degree? Do you need more than that? And then how is it compared to going the experience route, as far as like how long it takes to get your certification?
Okay. So for the school route, typically most programs are 2 years. So it would be 4 semesters with summers off. Some programs, like I said, are compressing and shortening to a quicker time frame. It just depends. Um, you only have to have a high school diploma or GED. You have to be 18. You have to be able to speak, read, and write the English language, unless, of course, you're going to work as an American mechanic in a foreign country. And then, so say if you're primarily a Spanish speaking person and you want to work out of the country in a Spanish speaking country, then they waive that requirement for you. Um, so once you go through the curriculum and you successfully pass that, you get the ability to take your licensing exams. And so you guys know on the pilot side that you're taking tests all the time and recertifying and
Mhm.
doing all that stuff. We don't ever have to really recertify as long as we stay active as a mechanic. But there's 9 tests. We have 3 portions of curriculum: general, power plant, and airframe. General is kind of the building blocks of what we do, your basics. Airframe is everything on the aircraft, all systems, all materials, everything from nose to tail, with the exception of the engines. And of course, power plant is going to be the engines. So you have to take a written exam for each section, and then you have to take an oral and practical exam in front of a designated mechanic examiner, where they're going to ask you questions out loud. You have to answer them, and then you actually have to perform to return to service standard a practical hands-on demonstration. So it could be that you're tearing down a magneto and timing it internally. And I mean, it's anything that we do, they can get called on, and they may have to do that as part of their examination. And then once they pass all their tests, they'll get their certificate. It's like I said, good until they decide to surrender it, or it gets revoked or superseded. So if you want to go the experience route, then typically, depending on what you do, so it's 36 months. So you have to have 18 months for each one, I believe, a total of 36 for both the airframe and the power plant. You have to be able to have an employer that will allow you to log the things that you do and kind of keep track, so that you can prove to the FSDO, the FAA, that you have completed all the requirements of like what we do in school. So the requirements don't change. You can just do them in a different way. So I have a young man right now who worked in avionics, and he's got his sign off from the military experience for his airframe. They would not sign him off on power plants because, like I said, the military is very segmented. He never worked on engines. So we're having a conversation. He's going to come down to me, and we're just going to do his power plant part, and anything that he didn't get to do while he was in avionics, say for instance, he never did a sheet metal project, I'll walk him through that too, so that we can get him prepared to pass those tests. So that's kind of how it works.
Very cool. Yeah, it just sounds like such a great opportunity for, you know, young people that are coming out into the workforce right now.
It
You know,
is.
it takes a long time to become a pilot, I think, kind
Yes.
of by comparison. If you're
Yeah.
ready to get to work and you want to do some hands-on, what I imagine is probably some fun type of work, this sounds like such a great option. So,
Yeah.
um,
And I can also talk about pay currently right now.
yeah, that'd be great.
Everybody's always interested in that. So, aviation maintenance has its ups and downs. There's been times like September 11th where aviation took a hit. Everybody knows that. And then COVID took a hit. That's part of the reason we're in this shortage, because so many people, they just took early retirement when COVID hit instead of cutting jobs, so that when everything came back, now we're short because we've retired all these people and we've gotten nobody back. But prior to COVID, my students were being offered $18 to $20 an hour with their A&P starting out. Now they're being paid 28 to 32 is starting out right out of school. So we had one company, Envoy, who is the
Hmm.
regional for American Airlines. We have those in that in Little Rock, and they started offering students 28 bucks an hour, $7,500 sign on, $5,000 to relocate. Every single one of my students that got their ticket last time is at Envoy currently, because that was the highest paying gig. Dassault Falcon Jet was offering about 21 and some change. Well, I had a conversation with Dassault, and they said we had 3 or 4 guys that were going to come to us when they graduated, but we never heard from them. What happened? And I said, well, they went to Envoy because they were paying them $7 more an hour. Well, now everybody in Little Rock is starting out at $28 an hour. So
Oh,
that
wow.
it kind of benefited them. But it's wild. If you guys just go on like usajobs.gov or any of those other places and type in aircraft mechanic, it's crazy. And it's a great time to get in on it while the money is high. So once you get in
Yeah,
at 30 bucks an hour, if for some reason aviation kind of takes a dive, you're still making 30 bucks an hour.
right.
So it's a great time to get in. It's a great career. So yeah.
Very
Highly
cool.
recommend. Yeah.
Yeah, and also just to note, those are employers that are in Arkansas. So I'd be interested to see how it compares to California. I don't know if
I was
you know,
trying
be
to
something to.
find, because someone had shared on Facebook in one of the mechanic groups all the pay scales for the major airlines, like side by side, and I couldn't track it back down. I didn't save it when I saw it, and I should have. It's pretty good. Like, most of the majors are starting out around, because a regional will start you about 28 and you'll get up to about 35, 40 with them. Typically after 3 years of experience in a regional, the majors will pull them. So that's what happens. The regionals are always looking because American's going to come to Envoy and say, okay, I need your three best guys. And then they're going to, whatever they're making, they're going to offer them about $10 more than that. And then they're going to take them. So I have four students that started out at Envoy about 5 years ago. All of them are in Tulsa currently with American. So, and they're
Okay.
all extremely happy. So,
Okay.
and it just depends on what's in our area and what they know. So for my students, I'll tell them, where do you want to go? Like, where is it that you want to live? If you want to go to California, pick an area. I'll start making phone calls. So we'll get them in wherever. I can find somebody to take you and find you a job. So we actually have students in Florida. We have students in North Carolina with HACO. I would love to have some at Southwest. So we'll see what we can do. But
Very
yeah,
cool. Yeah. It sounds like it works similar a little bit like the way the airline pilots, you know, start at the regionals and then,
yeah,
you know, move on to the majors after some
yeah,
time. So
yeah.
wonderful. Well, Kat, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to, you know, get on here. I know it's late in Arkansas right now, and you know, just taking the time to put this presentation and share your experience and your knowledge with us.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. I learned a lot, and I'm excited for our members to uh, get this information to you in the video.
I
So
appreciate being invited. I'm sorry I had the glitch with the technology, but I hope everybody still gets some information out of it, some good ideas. And then anytime you can encourage a young girl to pick up a wrench and learn something about how something works, do it, because it's an invaluable skill. So
absolutely wonderful. And for anybody watching, you can get more information about women in aviation and the San Diego chapter by going to waisandiego.org. Thanks.